8 a.m. Eastern. That's Eastern for those of you West Coast Bird fans who jump on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel and join the Mac and Mac guys. Jody McDonald, along with my partner, John McMullen, who looked like he got a little color out there at Birds Voluntary, although they had really good turnout, camp. Mr. McMullen, you got to invest in some sunblock there, buddy. You look a little red this morning.
I think that's the light. I haven't seen the sun in 8 months. We weren't allowed to go to football games. So yeah, I'm gonna get burnt a little bit, but you fight through it. It's not that big of a deal. But I thought we were going to call it a gathering, Jody. I like that term.
We can go gathering. I'm sorry. I tried that one out there yesterday. You like that. Another gathering in South Philadelphia of the Philadelphia Eagles 2021 football team in this, sorry to say, transition year. We're just going to harp on that because we got it.
The owner harped on it, not us.
Exactly right. We're getting this one from the big cheese when we roll transition out there. It started at the top, and that's kind of what this season is going to be about. But as I mentioned at the gathering yesterday, pretty good turnout, except for a couple of veteran guys. I don't think anybody is surprised that Fletcher Cox wasn't there. Brandon Graham's already put his time in. Darius Slay, a no-show yesterday. This only year two of his Philadelphia Eagle tenure, and he hasn't been around as long as either Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham. Was he conspicuous by his absence?
I don't think so. He's an entrenched player. I don't think it's a concern. I mean, the one thing is, Zach Ertz wasn't going to be there. Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham have been here. So who knows? They might have had something to do. They talked to the media last week already. We haven't talked to Darius yet. So I don't think it's any indication of unhappiness. It's just he probably wants to stay back in Michigan and do some things with his family. And, it's voluntary work. Voluntary means voluntary, as the union will tell you. And when you're a star player, voluntary does mean voluntary.
Yeah, really voluntary.
It actually is voluntary. So it's not a big deal. But I'll tell you what stands out. I'm sitting there watching the cornerbacks without Darius Slay.
Yeah.
And then going through the rotations, and Avonte Maddox is number one, and you start to go, oh, this is shaky. Can you imagine if Darius sprained an ankle, forget about a serious injury, but wasn't able to go on a particular game day? Whew. We had Jimmy Kempski on yesterday. He did his sort of depth series of pieces for Billy Boyce. There is no depth at the cornerback position on the Philadelphia Eagles right now.
That is the one offseason move that I think all Eagle Nation is waiting on. The Eagles to add another cornerback or two. Don't know if they've got the cap room even after June 1st to be able to add two, but Eagles are still hoping that a potential starting cornerback is still out there. Because, we're talking about depth, and I think all the fans understand what depth is. It's a domino effect. When you add someone, they get slotted in, everybody moves down one slot thereafter, and that's how you build up your depth and get better at depth. Oh, yes, the Eagles need depth at quarterback, and sometimes when you're reaching for depth, let's say you're going to carry four cornerbacks. It's either going to be four or five. You're looking for that fourth guy, a better fourth guy who's going to push your fourth guy to your fifth spot. Oh, no, the Eagles need number two to be able to push down 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. For the quarterbacks who did show up yesterday, who, yes, we all have an opinion on how much they've done and how much they can do. At least anybody make any plays yesterday?
Well, there's nobody to make plays against. The offense doesn't work against the defense. So it's just for the defense, at least offensively, you can look at the quarterback throwing the football. You can look at the receivers catching the football. But, for a corner, you're not covering receivers. For defensive linemen, you're not going against offensive linemen and vice versa. So it truly is individual work. It truly is teaching and technique and fundamentals. So no, I mean, you can't gain much from this type of atmosphere, especially on the defensive side of the football, especially at a place like corner where you probably need to figure some things out. And Jody, you mentioned four. I mean, NFL teams in this era, they keep 6 corners because, teams play so much 11 personnel. There's 3 receivers on the field, 80% of the time for certain teams. You go even Arizona, they'll put 4 or 5 receivers on the field. So you need a ton of cornerbacks in the modern NFL. And the Eagles don't have a ton of cornerbacks. Now, I do think, Jonathan Gannon can cobble together some things. I think he proved that in Indianapolis. So I'm not as concerned, weirdly, about the back end. I think, when you start talking about the 4th, 5th, 6th corners, they're going to have some flaws. They have some flaws in every city. You can't have a superstar that deep on your roster. And I think he'll be good with those types, getting those guys to play maybe a little bit better than you expect. My concern is at the very top. The guys that really have to hold the fort down. They have to play all the time. They have to play against the top receivers in this league. And we've talked about it. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Kenny Golladay, Terry McLaurin, so on and so on. And, the depth everywhere in this division, it's a concern. I will say that.
Right. And week number 1 in the upcoming season would be the Atlanta Falcons, who may or may not have Julio Jones there. It's one of the reasons why I brought up Darius Slay. Slay was one of the Philadelphia Eagles who decided to go to social media and lobby for Julio Jones. He put out a tweet with Julio Jones Eagles and big googly eyes, like how good that would look, him in an Eagle uniform. Yeah, Darius, we can see through that. You just don't want to cover him week number 1 because if he stays in Atlanta, that will be your responsibility. You'll cover him in practice. That's not a problem. During the game, he could make you actually look pretty bad. You and I brought this up yesterday, the Eagles being involved. Anytime there's a big name out there, because of Howie Roseman's reputation, the Eagles' name is going to come up as a potential suitor for that player. It's got almost no chance of happening, right? Because of I would say most reason is that they just don't have the cap room, and creating the cap room would make it very difficult for them. Second reason would be they're okay with their wide receiver group. You can't be. When Julio Jones is available, he's going to go to the top of your list. Sorry, Devontae Smith fans, and you know how big a fan I am. Yes, he would even go above the number 10 pick in the draft this year because he's Julio Jones. But the Eagles have no wiggle room in here to get involved in any Julio Jones conversation, even if they do have extra first-round draft picks, if that's what the cost is going to be for Julio Jones, right?
Yeah, and I don't think that is going to be the cost because we always talk about circumstance and where we are. And unfortunately, because of his contract, the Falcons had to wait post-June 1st. So there's not a lot of teams with a lot of room. Everybody's budgeted. Everybody's come up with a plan already. So it limits what you can do from a trade perspective, not only for the Falcons, but teams that might look at him in other circumstances if it were a different part of the calendar and they had more money and they hadn't already declared their intentions at the position, so to speak. For the Eagles, look, yeah, I don't think it's a fit for a number of reasons. One is, and most notably is the money issue and the fact that they just don't have the money. Now, you could always figure out a way. Howie Roseman has proven that. But then you talk about the transition where we started, Jody.
Right.
I mean, this team is known around the league. They've been saying this for 3 years now. We got to turn this roster over. So while I acknowledge how good Julio Jones is, he's also 32. He's also entering the last stage of his career at that particular position. Is this the timing to go after a player like that? I don't think it is, to be honest.
Right. Doesn't necessarily make sense. Julio Jones should be, and again, I saw him on the Undefeated show or Undisputed show on Fox with Bayless and Sterling Sharp the other day, or Shannon Sharp. The fact that he wants to play for a winner. And that makes sense on two ends.
Too.
he wants to try and get himself a Super Bowl ring. And yes, the teams that would be willing to take him on or should be willing to take him on at this point know full well they're going to have to take a cap hit somewhere down the road because you can write contracts and Julio can play for a very reasonable number this year. as long as you convert a large signing bonus that he gets the money up front. Oh, all the players like that. Give me my money right away and let me get it. It's a guarantee when it's in my bank account. But then you need to create phony years on the back end of deals. And eventually you're never going to get to those years. And you're going to take a big cap hit when you move on from the player. So teams who would be willing to do that, you would think are teams that really honestly believe, yes, we've got a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. And Julio Jones is going to absolutely help us do just that. So we'll be willing to pay the piper at a later date for our Super Bowl chance this year. You can't make the argument for the Eagles being in that group this season.
No, and the reason they're doing this with Carson Wentz and taking that dead money hit is to create flexibility for 2022 and beyond. So they're taking their medicine now. The last thing they want to do is take that horrible gulp of medicine and then say, oh, let's get another, so we have to take it next year, or let's keep going. They want to correct that issue and the fact that, and I don't even know if that's the right term, Jody, because I think the Eagles did the right thing. When the championship window was open, you spend money, you go for it, you do these types of things to get you over the hump. The problem is they thought the championship window was open a little bit longer than it really was, and that's always a difficult decision. I mean, you know, that's one of the hardest things in sports, to serve those two masters, to kind of say, are we going to be honest with ourselves and we got to start going in a different direction, getting younger, getting more cost effective so we could do it again? Or are we going to try to go for another championship? The Eagles kept going for another championship a little bit too long, and that's why we are where we are. On the other hand, I don't think fans want to trade in that Lombardi trophy. I think they're pretty happy with it. So I think they probably would have liked another. I'm pretty sure of that. So I can't really blame the organization for that, but I will blame them if they do this, because this will be a third year, Jody. This will be a third year. And by the way, I would have killed him for the Ryan Kerrigan contract if it wasn't the Ryan Kerrigan contract. If they had to pay him $5 million,
right,
I would have killed him. They paid him 1.36 under salary cap. That's great. That's fine. As long as it's not financially hamstringing you in the future, I have no problem with that. Julio Jones would hamstring them financially.
You are 100% correct. And yes, this is a transition year. Bringing in Julio Jones would not be what we would think of as a transition move. That would be a win now move. And Ryan Kerrigan is a win now move, but you're right. It was so relatively inexpensive, you can't knock it. And I'm quite happy to have Ryan Kerrigan on this Eagles squad coming up this year. Yeah, if Howie Roseman needs to hear from somebody just to laser focus what he's doing during this offseason, which is still ongoing, he should probably call Ruben Amaro, because Ruben did the same thing. Just kept trying to stay with it. They stayed with it after their championship run. And yeah, it got him a whole bunch of playoff appearances, but never got him another World Series. And then they paid for it in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and now in 2021. Because yeah, sometimes it's pretty difficult to get out of that hole if you do go for it too long. But I digress. You mentioned Carson Wentz and the price that the Eagles are paying this year. Somebody did tweet me, I think it was over the weekend, on Sunday it was, because they know that I was one of those who jumped on the we need to move on from Carson Wentz.
Yes, you were. You were one of the few, by the way. I'll give you credit for that.
I like Carson Wentz, and I thought Carson Wentz, when you're right, you're right. When you're wrong, you're wrong. You got to step up and admit it. I was wrong about Carson Wentz. I thought he was going to have a good year. When the few dissenters started to pile on early in the season, which, by the way, yesterday, I watched the NFL Network when you and I are on the air. It's on in the background. The volume's down, so I don't really watch it, but I get to catch a little of Good Morning Football before you and I come on. So it's on when I get off the air. Do you know what they were re-airing yesterday? I hadn't changed the channel. Last year's Eagles-Redskins season opener.
Ooh.
And I had completely forgotten that the Eagles were up 17 to nothing.
Yeah,
Dallas Goedert, 20-some-odd yard touchdown grab in the second quarter to put them up 17 nothing.
They look great. They look great early.
that game fell apart like you talk about a house of cards. And Carson Wentz was part of that. But that week, I didn't blame Carson Wentz. Come on, all right, he didn't do it in the second half. Well, he'll be fine. He's Carson Wentz. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And at some point in the season, I had to say, it's not just the offensive line. It's not just Doug Peterson's play calling. It's not just the fact that the receiving core wasn't built up good enough during the offseason. It's Carson not being able to make plays and accurately throw the ball and make a big play in a big spot. So I had to admit that Carson Wentz wasn't playing like I thought Carson Wentz would. And yeah, he got so bad, I say he needs to be replaced. I would have gone to Jalen Hurts at least a week before, if not 2 weeks before. So yes, the Carson Wentz defenders, who I was one of for a period of time and got off that train, are still ticked off at me that I did get off the Carson train. But you got to call it the way you see it. So one of those guys decided to tweet me this weekend. They enclosed, and I forget what betting outlet it was. Could have been FanDuel. It could have been DraftKings. I don't remember who it was. But it was one of the major betting outlets posting odds for NFL Comeback Player of the Year. And one of the favorites already at this time is none other than Carson Wentz. And he tweeted me along the lines, you want to make some money, Jody, get back on that Carson bandwagon. Comeback Player of the Year this year, Carson Wentz. And I knew that it was just him pimping me and giving me a hard time and trolling. And I get it. And that's what Twitter's all about. And I read it and I roll my eyes and I move on. But it was a decent point. Here's the reason why Carson Wentz can actually win Comeback Player of the Year, John. Tell me if you agree or not. He was so friggin' bad last year. Yeah. He doesn't have to be all that good this year to be Comeback Player of the Year.
Well, by the way, I don't even think he should be Comeback Player of the Year, no matter what he does, even if he's an All-Pro, simply because that award should be somebody coming back from an ACL tear like Nick Bosa or somebody of that nature. Somebody who's overcoming something, not playing poorly. Playing so disastrously, people are saying, oh, he's going to make a big comeback from the depths he fell to. I don't even think he should be involved in that conversation. I know he will be, though, because it's a quarterback. And if he plays well, he will be at the top of that. So if you do win some money, that's probably a decent bet if you do want to win some money. But I don't even think he should be in the conversation. He benched himself, Jody. He benched himself. And the fact he's angry, I mean, this team gave him more rope than he deserved.
Oh, yeah.
On field. Not, off the field, we can have a different discussion.
Right. And I disagree with you about the comeback status. If you were really bad, if you were really good at one point and then became really bad and became really good again, yeah, that to me is a comeback player.
Well,
I got no problems with
Carson. I think it's a different award. It depends on your definition. I think it's for somebody overcoming somebody like a Nick Bosa. Now, but I'll use that as an example because I think that's one of the best players in football overall. Nick Bosa, I think he carried the 49ers to the Super Bowl. That's how dominant he was. If he has a great year, and I expect him to, and Carson has a great year, guess what? Carson's going to win because he's a quarterback. That's just how it works. And I think Nick Bosa is more of a comeback, but that's my definition.
Right. Our definitions don't align because I actually think it's more comeback-ish. Love when we can create words here on Birds 365 to come back from lousy play than it is an injury. But again, they list them for you and you picked out the one that you think is going to happen, and good luck trying to make some money. All right, coming up next here on Birds 365, our buddy Chris Franklin from NJ.com is going to hop aboard. He, like our buddy Johnny Mack here, was down at the gathering that the Eagles had in South Philadelphia yesterday. We'll talk about what the Birds are showing. Not a lot, but at least a good majority of them are showing up for this offseason here in 2021. We appreciate you tuning in on this Wednesday get-together on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.